Kingdoms rarely fall the way men expect. They do not collapse in a single moment of chaos. They do not crumble because of one mistake alone. They decay quietly through pride, exhaustion, and the slow refusal to listen. In the summer of 1187, the Kingdom of Jerusalem still stood. Its banners flew, its castles guarded the roads, its kings held court. But beneath the stone and ceremony, the kingdom was already living on borrowed time. For nearly a century, the Crusader states had endured. Against odds that once seemed impossible, they had carved out fragile realms along the eastern Mediterranean, surrounded by enemies, dependent on distant Europe, and held together by fortresses, alliances, and belief. They remembered their victories. They remembered Jerusalem. They believed endurance meant permanence, and that belief would cost them everything. The men who ruled the Kingdom of Jerusalem in 1187 were not the men who had fought their way into the Holy Land decades earlier. They inherited walls, not desperation. Titles, not scars. Power, not humility. Many had never known what it meant to be hunted, starved, or alone in hostile land. They believed their castles were enough. They were wrong. Across the desert, another power was forming. Saladin was not a myth. He was not a symbol. He was a patient, disciplined commander who understood something his enemies did not. Wars are not won by rage. They are won by preparation. For years, Saladin unified fractured Muslim territories, not through reckless conquest, but through diplomacy, restraint, and timing. While the Crusader states argued among themselves, Saladin waited. The Kingdom of Jerusalem was not united. It was fractured by ambition. Nobles mistrusted one another. Military orders guarded their independence. The crown lacked authority. At the center of this instability stood a young king, Guy of Lusignan. He wore the crown, but he did not command respect. Guy was not a coward, but he was not a leader forged by hardship. His authority rested on marriage, not experience. His decisions were shaped by pressure, not instinct. He was surrounded by advisors who disagreed on everything: strategy, diplomacy, even survival itself. And in times of crisis, division is more dangerous than the enemy. Then there was Reynold, brilliant to some, reckless to others, dangerous to all. Reynold did not fear Saladin. He mocked him, he broke truces, attacked caravans, threatened pilgrimage routes sacred to Islam. Each raid was a challenge, each insult was remembered. Saladin did not respond immediately. He remembered diplomacy still existed. Some Crusader leaders understood the danger. They urged restraint. They understood Saladin's patience was not weakness, but restraint requires unity, and unity did not exist. Reynold's provocations continued, and with each one, the Kingdom of Jerusalem moved closer to catastrophe. When Saladin finally acted, it was not with anger. It was with calculation. He gathered forces quietly, coordinated supply lines, prepared the land itself to become a weapon. He did not rush toward the Crusaders. He shaped the battlefield long before a single sword was drawn. The region around Hattin was unforgiving. Dry hills, sparse water, blazing sun. Saladin knew this terrain intimately. The Crusaders did not. To fight here without water was suicide. Saladin intended to make sure they had none. Inside Crusader castles, life continued. Feasts were held, councils argued. Warnings were softened to avoid panic. No one wanted to believe that everything could be lost in a single campaign. They believed the kingdom had survived worse. They believed history favored them. History does not favor belief. Then came the message. Saladin had moved against Tiberius. A calculated strike, not to conquer, but to provoke. The trap was set. Now the Kingdom of Jerusalem had to choose: stay defensive and appear weak, or march out into land that would kill them. The council gathered. Voices rose. Some urged caution, others demanded action. Reynold mocked restraint. Guy hesitated, and hesitation in war is rarely neutral. In the end, pride outweighed wisdom. The army would march. When the order was given, the kingdom crossed an invisible line. They were no longer defending territory. They were surrendering initiative. Saladin had wanted them to move. Now they would move, on his terms. The army assembled knights mounted. Infantry formed ranks, banners unfurled. It looked impressive, but appearances lie. The march began under a merciless sun, toward land with little water and fewer escape routes. Saladin watched and waited. Before a single blade met another, the battle was already decided. Not by strength, not by faith, not by courage, but by pride, division, and the refusal to understand the enemy. The kingdom of Jerusalem was marching toward Hattin, and history was about to turn against it. Great commanders do not rush toward battle. They shape it. They decide where it will be fought, when it will be fought, and under what conditions their enemy will arrive, exhausted, confused, and afraid. In the summer of 1187, Saladin did not seek a clash of armies. He sought control, and control begins long before swords are drawn. The Crusader host left its strongholds with confidence. Knights rode beneath banners that had flown for generations. Infantry followed, heavy with armor, shields, and expectation. From a distance, it looked like power. But power that moves blindly is only momentum. The sun rose higher, and the land began to close in around them. The road toward Tiberias was unforgiving. Rolling hills offered no shade. Rocky ground punished men and horses alike. Water sources were rare and known. Saladin knew every spring, every well, every dry valley, and he intended to deny them all. Saladin's forces did not engage. They shadowed. Mounted archers moved like ghosts along the ridgelines, always visible, but never close enough to strike decisively. They were reminders, not threats. Every glimpse whispered the same message: you are not alone. You are surrounded. By midday, thirst announced itself. At first, it was discomfort. Men drained water skins too quickly, believing more would be found ahead. Horses slowed. Armor became unbearable beneath the sun. The march lengthened. Cohesion weakened. Saladin did nothing, and everything worsened. Many commanders would have attacked immediately. Saladin did not. He understood something the Crusaders did not. Every hour they marched was an hour they weakened themselves. Every step carried them farther from water and closer to collapse. Why interrupt an enemy destroying himself? As the day wore on, Saladin's light cavalry struck, briefly. A sudden arrow volley, a quick charge, then withdrawal, no pursuit. No engagement, just enough violence to remind the Crusaders they were vulnerable. Just enough to force them to stay armored. Just enough to accelerate exhaustion. To stop was dangerous. To continue was worse. They could not abandon formation without inviting destruction. They could not slow without losing daylight. Guy of Lusignan pressed on, because retreat would look like weakness, and weakness in his position felt unbearable. The Muslim forces moved effortlessly. They had water, they had fresh horses. They rotated units. Saladin ensured his men rested while the enemy marched. War for him was a matter of patience. When night finally arrived, it brought no relief. The air remained warm. Water remained scarce. Men collapsed where they stood. Saladin's forces encircled the camps loosely, not to attack, but to watch. Fires burned in the distance. The Crusaders understood then. They were not marching toward a battle. They were being led into one. Dawn arrived mercilessly. The Crusader army was already weakened. Men rose stiff, thirsty, irritable. Horses drank dust. Still, the march continued, and Saladin tightened the circle. By now, the Crusaders were desperate for the springs near Tiberias. But Saladin moved first. His forces blocked access routes. Water became visible but unreachable, a psychological cruelty. Men could see what they could not reach, and desperation deepened. As the day progressed, smoke appeared. Saladin ordered dry grass burned ahead of the Crusader advance. Wind carried smoke into their faces. Ash filled lungs. The heat intensified. Breathing became labor. The land itself joined the attack. Discipline cracked. Men cursed their leaders. Arguments erupted. Some broke formation in search of water, only to be cut down. Reynaud urged attack. Others urged retreat. Guy hesitated. Hesitation now was fatal. By late afternoon, the Crusader army was no longer marching toward Tiberias. They were drifting, herded, forced toward the hills near Hattin, dry, exposed, and strategically disastrous. Saladin had not pushed them, he had guided them. The twin hills rose ahead. Bare rocky, without water, they looked harmless. They were not. Saladin positioned his forces around them with precision. Archers, infantry, cavalry, a net drawn tight. As night fell, the Crusader army halted near the horns of Hattin. They had failed to reach water. They had failed to break free. They were surrounded. Thirst now ruled every thought. Men licked stones. Horses collapsed. Prayers turned frantic. Saladin waited. Saladin had not won a battle. He had won control. The Crusader army stood thirsty, exhausted, surrounded, trapped between hills that offered no mercy. The noose was tight, and dawn would decide whether the kingdom of Jerusalem would survive or vanish in a single day. Dawn came without relief. The sun rose over the horns of Hattin as it always had, calm, indifferent, untroubled by the suffering below. For the Crusader army, the new day did not bring hope. It brought clarity. They were trapped. The night before had been a slow torture. Men slept in fragments, waking with mouths like sand and throats burning raw. Horses collapsed and were butchered for meat that could not quench thirst. Some men drank their own urine, others drank nothing at all. Prayer echoed through the camps, not organized, not comforting, but frantic and fractured. Saladin's fires burned in the distance, outlining the hills like warning beacons. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. As light spread across the hills, the full scope of the disaster became visible. Muslim forces surrounded the Crusader host in a wide arc, disciplined, rested, well supplied. The Crusaders stood compressed, disordered, dehydrated. Their banners still flew. But banners do not fight thirst. By mid-morning, men began to fail openly. Knights struggled to mount horses too weak to carry them. Infantry dropped shields because their arms would no longer lift them. Vision blurred, balance faltered. Some men collapsed without wounds, simply shutting down. Heat pressed down relentlessly. Armor became a prison. Then the fires began. Saladin ordered dry grass ignited around the Crusader positions. Thick and choking, driven by wind directly into the trapped army. Eyes burned, lungs seized. Ash settled on skin already cracked and bleeding. The land itself became a weapon. Through the smoke came arrows, not in waves meant to break formations, but in constant, relentless harassment. Every movement drew fire. Every attempt to regroup cost lives. Men died without ever seeing the enemy. This was not a heroic clash. It was extermination by patience. Leadership evaporated. Orders went unheard. Formations dissolved. Small groups charged blindly, hoping to break through to water to escape the smoke, to end the agony. They were cut down swiftly. Saladin's cavalry struck and withdrew, never allowing a decisive engagement, always denying relief, always pressing. At the heart of the Crusader army stood the true cross, the most sacred relic they possessed. It was meant to inspire. It did not. Men gathered around it not with renewed courage, but with despairing hope that holiness might still save them. Faith now competed with biology. Biology was winning. Reynaud of Chatillon urged attack. He always had. Now rage replaced strategy. Charges were launched without coordination. Each failed. Each bled the army further. Reynaud had helped bring them here. Now he watched it collapse. King Guy attempted to restore order. But authority means little when men can barely stand. His voice did not carry through smoke and panic. His crown could not command water into existence. He was king of an army that could no longer obey. By midday, the Crusader army fractured completely. Some units fled uphill toward the horns of Hattin. Others clustered around the true cross. Many simply sat down, unable to continue. Saladin tightened his formations. Now he allowed the circle to close. The hills offered no protection. No water, no escape. Men climbed them anyway, driven by instinct, not logic. They were cut down from above and below. The ground became slick. Bodies piled where they fell. History often speaks of battles. This was collapse. At last, the unthinkable happened. The true cross fell, captured. The symbol around which the army had anchored its belief was gone. What little resistance remained dissolved instantly. Men wept, others dropped weapons. Some screamed. The kingdom of Jerusalem had lost more than a relic. It had lost its soul. Groups began to surrender en masse. Weapons were cast aside. Men fell to their knees, not in prayer, but in exhaustion. Saladin's forces accepted surrender methodically. This was not vengeance, it was control. Reynold of Chatillon was taken alive. Saladin did not forget him. Some men are remembered for courage, others for consequences. Reynold belonged to the latter. As fighting faded, the hills stood quiet. Smoke drifted. The sun continued its course. The ground was littered with the remains of an army that had once believed itself unbreakable. Very few escaped. Even fewer would return home. The Battle of Hattin was not decided by swords. It was decided by thirst, fire, and patience. By leaders who misunderstood war, and one who understood it completely. The Kingdom of Jerusalem had marched out in confidence. By the end of the day, it no longer existed as a fighting force, and the road to Jerusalem now lay open. By the time the sun reached its height, the battle was already over. What remained was not resistance, but consequence. The Crusader army no longer existed as a coherent force. It had become fragments scattered across dry hills, surrendering one by one, collapsing where they stood, or dying without strength left to fight. The horns of Hattin had done their work, and Saladin moved carefully through the ruins. A field of captives, thousands were taken alive. Knights who had once commanded castles now sat on the ground, helmets removed, eyes unfocused. Infantry huddled together, too exhausted to fear what came next. This was not chaos. Saladin enforced order. Guards separated prisoners. Wounded were identified. Commanders were brought forward. War, for Saladin, did not end with victory. It required control afterward. Money the True Cross displayed the True Cross, captured, guarded, unmistakable, was displayed before the prisoners, not as mockery. As fact, its loss was absolute. Men who had marched believing it guaranteed divine favor now stared at it in silence. No miracle had occurred, no protection had been granted. Faith had not failed them, but it had not saved them either. On the king before the victor Guy of Lusignan was brought before Saladin. Dust-covered, thirst-mad, defeated, Saladin offered him water. It was not a gesture of mercy alone. It was a statement. Saladin understood symbols. Guy drank, and in that act accepted his survival. Saladin's war was not against captives, it was against power. B. Reynold of Chatillon faces judgment. Reynold was brought next. There was no water offered, no courtesy. Saladin remembered the broken truces, the caravans attacked, the insults delivered openly and proudly. This was not vengeance in rage. This was accountability. Saladin executed Reynold personally. The act was deliberate, contained, final. Those watching understood the message immediately. There would be rules, and there would be consequences. Mas, the military orders, members of the military orders, Templars and Hospitallers, were separated. They were not treated as ordinary prisoners. These were professional warriors, sworn permanently to war. Saladin knew they would fight again if released. Many were executed, not cruelly, systematically. The kingdom's sharpest edge was removed in a single afternoon. Silence over the hills. As the day faded, the horns of Hattin grew quiet. Smoke thinned. The wind carried the smell of burned grass and death. Birds circled. Men who had survived sat in disbelief, not yet understanding that their world had ended. An entire kingdom's defense had collapsed in less than 2 days. What Hattin changed? Hattin was not just a battle. It was an erasure. Every major Crusader force had been present. Every major leader captured, killed, or broken. There would be no relief army, no counterattack. The road to Jerusalem now lay open. Saladin's discipline. Saladin did not rush forward immediately. He reorganized, resupplied, consolidated control. Because he understood something history often forgets. Victory that moves too fast creates chaos, and chaos destroys legitimacy. He would not repeat his enemy's mistakes. The prisoners' march captives were moved under guard. Some would be ransomed, some imprisoned, some never seen again, but none doubted what Hattin meant. The kingdom of Jerusalem could no longer defend itself. Its castles would fall one by one. Its cities would be isolated. Its fate was sealed. Later the land remembers. The hills of Hattin returned to silence. Grass would grow again. Travelers would pass without knowing exactly where the army had died. But the land remembered. It always does. Empires rise loudly. They fall quietly. A measured Victor Saladin prayed, not in triumph, in gratitude. His campaign had succeeded not because of numbers, but because of restraint, patience, and understanding of war's deeper mechanics. He had defeated arrogance with discipline, and the world shifts news traveled fast, across the Levant, across Europe. The kingdom of Jerusalem, thought permanent, had collapsed in a single campaign. Panic would follow, crusades would be called, but the balance had changed forever. Meatif closing, long silence, wind across hills. Narration, at the horns of Hattin, a kingdom died. Not with a final charge, not with a heroic stand, but with thirst, smoke, and silence. The cross had fallen, the army was gone, and Jerusalem stood exposed. History would remember this day not for its noise, but for how completely it ended an era. When the fighting ended, there was no celebration. No great shout, no moment of release. There was only silence, the kind that follows catastrophe, when those who survive struggle to understand what has happened. The horns of Hattin stood unchanged, but the world around them had shifted permanently. A kingdom without an army, the kingdom of Jerusalem, had lost its shield. There were no field forces left to defend it, no relief army waiting beyond the horizon. Every major crusader leader had been present at Hattin. Every major fighting unit had been destroyed or captured. What remained were cities without protection and castles without hope. News spreads. Like fire messengers rode hard across the Levant. The news did not arrive as rumor. It arrived as certainty. Hattin, the cross captured, the king imprisoned, the army annihilated. Fear spread faster than Saladin's cavalry ever could. Castles fall one by one. Saladin moved deliberately, not in haste. City after city opened its gates. Some resisted briefly. Most did not. They understood. There would be no rescue. Acre fell, Jaffa followed. Ascalon surrendered. Not because Saladin was unstoppable, but because Hattin had made resistance meaningless. Jerusalem waits. Jerusalem remained sacred, symbolic, not exposed. Its walls still stood, its people still prayed. But its defenders knew the truth. They had no army, only memory. A different kind of siege. When Saladin reached Jerusalem, he did not repeat 1099. There was no slaughter, no rivers of blood. The city surrendered after negotiation. Ransom replaced massacre. The population was spared. History rarely allows for moral clarity. But here restraint spoke louder than revenge. Only faith after defeat. For the Christian world, Hattin shattered assumptions. Faith had not guaranteed victory. Relics had not ensured protection. Prayer had not stopped arrows. This forced a reckoning, not about belief, but about responsibility. The call for revenge. Europe did not accept the loss quietly. Preachers spoke of humiliation. Kings spoke of redemption. A new crusade was called. Men like Richard the Lionheart would come east. Hattin did not end conflict. It transformed it. Saladin's legacy. Saladin did not seek annihilation. He sought legitimacy, control, stability. His victory at Hattin elevated him beyond commander. It made him a symbol, not of conquest, but of disciplined power. The myth of invincibility dies for nearly a century. The Crusader states had believed themselves permanent. Hattin proved otherwise. Power built without humility collapses quickly. Arrogance marches confidently into traps it cannot see. What Hattin teaches. Hattin teaches that battles are rarely decided at the moment of contact. They are decided by logistics, leadership, terrain, restraint, and by the ability to understand war as more than violence. The land endures, the hills still stand, the wind still moves through the grass. Travelers pass without knowing what happened beneath their feet, but history remains, waiting to be remembered. Closing reflection: empires do not fall in a single moment. They fall when they refuse to listen, to warning, to reality, to consequence. At Hattin, an army died, but more importantly, an illusion died with it. This was the day the cross fell, not because faith failed, but because arrogance met patience. Hattin was not the end of war, but it was the end of certainty, and history would never be the same again.